My house isn't where I left it, and nothing inside is quite right. I came home to an empty lot. Not just empty like a new development, plot empty like the earth had never even considered placing a home there in the first place. The driveway I paved 2 summers ago with my brother? Gone. The small maple tree in the yard that Cassie and I planted when we first moved in? Nowhere in sight. Just hard-packed dirt and weeds waving in the wind. I parked my car across the street and stared, confused, half laughing, half furious. This had to be some kind of joke, a prank, maybe a film shoot gone wrong. But who would move an entire house? And then I saw it. My house was 2 blocks away, just sitting there, like it had always been there, nestled at the end of a cul-de-sac that used to be a dead-end forest path. I didn't move. Cars passed behind me. No one else seemed disturbed by the fact that a full 2-story home had relocated like a hermit crab changing shells. I got back into the car and slowly rolled down the block. As I approached the house, everything looked superficially the same. The red-painted shutters, the black mailbox leaning slightly from where the snowplow hit it last winter, the second-floor window I'd always meant to reseal. My car keys jangled in my hand as I climbed out. My chest was tight with disbelief, but something stronger overrode it. Familiarity. This was my house. I knew every creak of the porch, every nail I'd hammered in, every light fixture I'd replaced. I reached for the doorknob. It was unlocked. I stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was the smell. It was subtle, but wrong. My home usually smelled faintly of cedar and lemon cleaner, but now it had a dry chemical tang, like old hospitals and static electricity. I walked through the foyer slowly. My coat rack was the reason spot, but there were only 2 hooks, not 4. The carpet runner had a different pattern, more geometric than floral. I stepped into the kitchen, and a wave of nausea hit me. The cabinets were the same style, but the colours were off taupe, instead of the warm pine I'd chosen with Cassie. And the fridge. It hummed too loudly. I pulled it open. Empty. I'm not talking, oh, I need to go shopping empty. I mean, there weren't even shelves inside. Just a smooth, white cavity, like a fake appliance used for set dressing. I shut it and backed away. Cassie, I called out. My voice cracked. I cleared my throat and tried again, louder. Cassie! No response. The house was quiet, suffocatingly so. I ran upstairs, 2 steps at a time. The master bedroom door was ajar. I pushed it open with my palm and froze. Cassie was lying in bed. Her back was turned toward me, the sheets pulled up to her shoulders. Her long brown hair spilled over the pillow like I'd seen 1,000 times before. Relief flooded me. Cass? No answer. I crossed the room, my steps strangely muffled on the floorboards. I reached out to touch her shoulder. Cold. She didn't move. My fingers brushed her skin and I recoiled. It wasn't just cold, it was stiff. I stepped around the bed, heart pounding. Cassie was not breathing. Her face was pale, her lips slightly parted, her eyes were open. Open and empty. I staggered back. No, Cassie. I grabbed her wrist, no pulse. I shook her gently, then harder. Her body was limp, unmoving. I fumbled for my phone and dialed 911. But there was no signal, not a single bar. I moved to the window, trying to find reception. Nothing. I opened the window and leaned out. And that's when I realized this wasn't my neighborhood. It looked like my street, but the trees were all wrong, too tall, too perfect. The cars parked on the curb were outdated models, pristine and unrecognizable. There were no birds, no sounds of life. Just whined through empty branches. The operator voice finally clicked in on the line. We're sorry, the number you have dialed does not exist. I dropped the phone. I ran, down the stairs, out the door, into the street. I screamed for help. I banged on the neighbor's door. The woman who answered looked almost like Mrs. Reynard from 2 houses down, but her eyes were off too large, the pupils glassy and unfocused. She smiled as though she recognized me. Welcome home, she said. I stumbled backward. That was when the sky dimmed, not darkened, but dimmed, like someone had turned down the saturation on reality itself. The air smelled like burnt plastic and metal. I ran back to the house. I didn't know what else to do. Cassie's body was still in bed. I sat in the living room, numb, unable to cry. Hours passed, maybe days. At some point, I fell asleep on the couch. I awoke to Cassie's voice. "Honey?" I bolted upright. She was standing in the kitchen, alive, smiling, wearing her favorite pajama pants and the t-shirt from our anniversary trip to Nova Scotia. "Cassie?" I whispered. She nodded, tilting her head. "You okay? You were screaming in your sleep." I ran to her and held her so tightly I thought I'd crush her. I felt her heartbeat, her warmth. She kissed my cheek. "Bad dream?" she asked gently. "Yeah," I said, my voice cracking. But something deep in my stomach twisted, because behind her, the fridge door was hanging open, and there were still no shelves inside. I didn't mention the fridge, or how I'd found her cold and lifeless just a day before. It felt impossible to explain, even to her, even to myself. Cassie moved around the kitchen like she always had, humming under her breath, making coffee, kissing my cheek before she pulled open the drawer that normally held the spoons. Except it held nothing now, just a smooth black cavity, as if someone had carved out the space and never bothered to finish it. She stared into it for a beat too long, blinked, then shut it without a word. I watched her closely for the rest of the morning. Everything she did felt practiced, scripted. If I asked her a question, she answered immediately, sometimes too quickly, like she already knew what I was going to ask. "Cassie, what did we do on our first anniversary?" She smiled. "You burned pancakes and we went to the lake. You dropped your phone in the water." I laughed. It was correct. "And what's your mum's maiden name?" "Rivers." Correct again. But her answers had no texture, no warmth, like a machine spitting out memorized facts. That night, we sat on the couch watching TV, but there was no sound. The screen played a sitcom I didn't recognize. The actors laughed in perfect sync, but their mouths didn't match the laughter. It looked dubbed, like a badly translated foreign show. Cassie laughed too, but it was dry, mechanical. I turned off the TV. "I'm going for a walk," I said. She nodded, not looking at me. "Okay, be safe." Outside, the air was too still. I walked down the street, glancing at each house. All identical to the ones I remembered, but with something slightly wrong: doors, a little too tall, windows placed too low, mailboxes sunken into the ground as if they were melting. I turned a corner and saw the original lot where my house had been just yesterday. Now it was filled again, but not with my house. A new building stood there, small, square, and windowless, almost like a bunker. I crossed the street cautiously, drawn to it. The door had no handle. I pushed, and it opened inward silently. Inside, it was pitch black. The air was cold and wet, like a basement after a flood. I took a step forward, and the door slammed shut behind me. My phone light barely pierced the dark, but I moved forward, breathing shallowly. The walls were pulsing, breathing. There was a rhythmic sound, deep and low, like a heartbeat echoing through rock. Then I saw them. Pictures. Dozens of them, nailed to the walls in a grid. My face in every one. Some recent, some I didn't remember being taken. Eating cereal, driving to work, sleeping. And in each photo, Cassie stood behind me, watching. Even in the ones where I was alone showering, brushing my teeth if you looked closely, there she was. A sliver of her face in the mirror, a reflection in a spoon. A scraping noise behind me made me whip around. A man stood there, gaunt, pale, wearing my clothes. His face was mine, but hollowed, stretched tight like a drum. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. His voice was thin, papery. "Who are you?" I asked. He didn't answer, just tilted his head and said, "She doesn't like when you wander." "Cassie?" "She's trying to keep things simple. You're making it worse." He took a step toward me. I backed up. "She needs this to work," he added. "You need to let her think it's working." "I don't understand." I started, but he was already gone. "Just blinked out of existence. The pictures on the wall started falling one by one, like leaves from a tree. I turned and ran. The door was gone. The walls twisted. Corridors unfolded where none had been before. It took me hours so what felt like hours to escape. When I finally pushed out into the open air, the sky had darkened. Stars blinked above in strange, alien constellations. I stumbled back to the house. Cassie was still on the couch. "You okay?" she asked. Yeah, just needed air." She smiled. I made tea. She handed me a mug. I stared into it. The liquid was black and still, no steam. I pretended to sip. It tasted like metal. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept the lamp on and stared at Cassie's sleeping form, wondering if she was breathing. She was, but too slowly. I crept downstairs, phone in hand, trying once again to call for help. This time, the screen didn't even light up. Instead, a text message appeared, unsent and untyped. "Stay inside." I dropped the phone. From the hallway, I heard a creak. I turned. A man was standing there, halfway in shadow. It was me again. Only this time, he looked more real, more solid, more like the man I remembered being. "I can help," he said, "but you have to do exactly what I say." I nodded, my hands trembling. He stepped forward and whispered, "This house isn't real." "This house isn't real," he repeated, quieter this time. "It's remembering your life, not living it." I stared at the man who looked exactly like Mesame Mole above the eyebrow, same faint scar under the chin from the tree branch accident when I was 12. But his eyes, they looked exhausted. And worse, frightened. "Where is Cassie?" I asked, my voice barely holding together. "She's part of the memory," he said. "Not the person, not really." "You're lying." I wish I was. I didn't believe him. I didn't want to believe him. I shoved past and stormed back up the stairs. The hallway lights flickered as I went. "Cassie?" I called. She wasn't in bed. I searched the house top to bottom. Every closet, every corner, empty. She had vanished. When I returned to the living room, the man me twin was sitting on the couch, sipping the same black tea from earlier. "She's gone because she's not meant to be active unless you're on script," he said. "Script?" He set the mug down. "This place runs on your memory, on what you expect. It tries to make you comfortable enough to forget the seams, but the moment you start noticing, it starts breaking down." "Why me?" He smiled, but it was a sad one. "Because you stayed too late at work." I blinked. "What?" "The moment you walked into the parking lot that night, you walked through the seam, between the real and here. This place caught you." "That makes no sense." "It doesn't need to," he snapped. "It feeds on sense. That's how it holds you." I backed away. "So what are you? Another memory?" "No, I'm you," he said. "The part of you that woke up earlier. The part that's been trying to claw its way out ever since you stepped into this mimicry." "Then help me," I begged. "Get me out." "I'm trying," he said, standing. "But we have to move fast, before it notices what you know." He motioned to the door. "We need to find the anchor room." I followed him outside. The neighborhood had changed again. Now the houses were all identical. Boxy, grey, 2 windows each, no lights. The trees were gone. Just dead soil and lampposts that hummed with static. "What's the anchor room?" I asked. "The only real part of this entire construct," he said. "The place that holds you here." We walked quickly, past house after house. The sky above churned like oil and water. Distant screams echoed through the air, not human, not even animal, something in between. My doppelganger stopped in front of a house. This one. It looked like all the others, but when I stepped inside, I felt it. Pressure, like walking into a thunderstorm, the air thick and crackling with something unspoken. We moved through empty rooms, then down a narrow staircase that hadn't existed seconds before. At the bottom was a door, black wood, no handle. He placed his hand on it. "You need to see something," he said, "but it's going to hurt." "What?" The door creaked open. Inside was My childhood bedroom. Down to the last sticker on the closet door, the faded astronaut wallpaper, the crooked nightstand lamp. And on the floor my little brother, Jamie, curled up in the corner, his face pressed into his knees, his shoulders shaking. I hadn't seen Jamie in 10 years, because he'd died. In that very room, I dropped to my knees. Jamie? He looked up. His face was the same as I remembered. Freckles, wide green eyes, but he looked older than he should have. Like time had worn him down, even in memory. "Why did you leave me?" he whispered. Tears blurred my vision. "I didn't. You were sick, remember? We couldn't." He stood, his arms hung loose. "You promised you'd stay with me that night." "I didn't know." He stepped closer. His feet didn't make a sound. "You let me die alone." "I was just a kid." He screamed then, a shriek that shattered the lamp and cracked the mirror on the wall. I covered my ears, trembling. The man-me twin grabbed my shoulder. "It's not Jamie, it's using him." The boy stopped screaming. He looked up, eyes now pitch black. "You don't belong here," it hissed through Jamie's mouth. "You're ruining the script." The walls shook. The wallpaper peeled like skin. The closet door splintered. "We have to run," my twin shouted. I didn't argue. We bolted out of the room, up the stairs, through the living room only to find the front door had vanished. In its place was a blank white wall, wet and pulsing. My double grabbed my arm and pulled me toward a side door, which opened into another impossible hallway. At the end was a ladder. We climbed. As I pushed the ceiling panel open, I realized we were climbing into the attic of my original home. The one I remembered. The one that no longer existed. We tumbled onto the floor, coughing from dust. I looked around. Everything was normal. The old Christmas boxes, the rusty fan, the crooked beam I'd hit my head on as a kid. "We're close," my twin said. "It's weakest up here. This is where we try." "Try what?" "To wake up." He reached into the pocket of his hoodie and pulled out something shiny. A shard of glass. Old, jagged, covered in dried blood. "I used this," he said, "before I split." "What do you mean?" "I didn't fully wake up," he said. "I got out of the illusion, but I stayed here, trapped between. If you want to escape, really escape, you have to force it." He handed me the shard. "I don't understand." He put his hands on my shoulders. "This place has you, every memory, every fear, every grief. It's feeding on them, keeping you here. You want out?" I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "Then you have to let go. You have to cut it out." He pointed to the mirror hanging on the attic beam. It was fogged, cracked, but it didn't reflect me. Only him. I stared at the shard, at my trembling hands. "I can't." "You have to." A pounding began below us. The thing in Jamie's shape was climbing the house, screeching our names. I raised the glass, closed my eyes, and drove it into my thigh. Pain exploded. Blood soaked my jeans. I screamed, collapsing. Then, the attic cracked apart. The walls tore like paper. A black wind howled through the space. And I saw it. The true shape of the thing that had built this prison. It towered over everything. A shape, not a creature in the way we define them. It had no face, no limbs, but it bent space around it like gravity gone mad. Where it moved, walls dissolved into memory, ceilings peeled away into dreams. It was made of every room I'd ever lived in, every hallway I'd run down as a child, every hospital corridor I'd walked, every waiting room I'd dreaded, shifting living like a hive of my most private spaces. I could see my mother's kitchen flickering inside it, my high school locker room, the hallway where Jamie died, all layered atop each other, throbbing. The shards still pulsed in my thigh. The pain was grounding me, keeping me here, keeping me me. I screamed through clenched teeth. "What is it?" My double was still there, crouched beside me, eyes wide. "It's the archivist," he said. "That's what I call it. It collects places, lives, memories. You wandered into it, and now it wants to make you part of the house it's building." The archivist didn't approach it descended. The attic floor warped under its presence. Beams stretched and split, splintering like dry bones. The air shimmered with a scent I recognized too late. Cassie's shampoo. I turned and saw her standing at the edge of the attic, backlit by impossible light. She wasn't afraid. "Come home," she said gently. Her voice was almost right, but there was a glitch beneath it, a second voice, whispering the words a millisecond too early, as if the sentence had already been spoken before she opened her mouth. "Cassie's dead," I whispered. She smiled. "Not here." "She was here. I found her body." She tilted her head. "She's with you. That's all that matters." She reached out. Her fingers were pale, almost transparent, like she was being painted layer by layer, but the ink had run dry halfway through. "Stay," she said. I turned to my double. "If I go with her, what happens?" "You become part of the house, not just a memory, a room, a hallway, a whisper in someone else's dream." A low groan vibrated the walls. The archivist was coming closer. Its body folded in on itself, shaping a corridor through the attic, opening doors I hadn't known were there. Behind each door, another me. Reading, weeping, bleeding, Cassie smiling over a dinner we never had, Jamie calling my name. It had everything. Every moment I'd ever lived, even the ones I tried to forget. "I want to go home," I whispered. "Then let go," my twin said. "It can't hold you unless you keep feeding it." "How?" "Let go of Cassie, let go of Jamie, let go of who you thought you were." Cassie was crying now, but her tears didn't fall. They hovered in the air like dust motes. The archivist reached for Might's shape, collapsing into a hallway of hands, all shaped like mine. I grabbed the shard again and raised it to my chest. Cassie screamed, really screamed, a terrible, shrill sound that cracked the floor beneath me. I plunged the shard into my own reflection. Not my chest, not my body, the mirror. The moment the glass broke, a wind howled through the attic, so loud it flattened everything. The reflection me fake twin-shattered into smoke. Cassie vanished mid-sob. The archivist Reddit. You can call it that, a sound that echoed in memory, not ears. It collapsed inward, folding in on its stolen lives, its stolen houses, its mimicry of the world. The house peeled away like wallpaper in a fire. The attic exploded into white. I woke up on asphalt, in front of my house, the real one, back on its proper lot. I was bleeding, my thigh burned, I was shaking all over. A neighbor across the street called my name, Mrs. Evers. Her voice sounded real, too real. I couldn't stop crying. Paramedics came. I told them I'd tripped on tools in the garage. No one asked questions. They stitched me up, left me with a bottle of painkillers, and told me to rest. I went inside. The fridge had shelves. The silverware drawer held silverware. Cassie's closet was empty, like it had been for a year, since the accident, since the funeral. Her toothbrush was gone, and Jamie's photo was still in the drawer beside my bed, where I'd put it 10 years ago and never had the heart to throw away. I collapsed onto the couch and wept until I slept. I never found the black house again. I tried, for weeks. Drove in circles, walked streets I thought I recognized. Nothing. Until one day I saw a for sale sign at the edge of the neighborhood. And the house behind it? Too perfect. Too new. Too familiar. I don't know who lives there now. But at night, sometimes, I hear them screaming. And I wonder if they're just starting to remember where they really are. Because if there's one thing I know now, it's this. A house doesn't need walls or nails or windows. Sometimes all it needs is you.